What is it about love that paints everything in shades of unattainable perfection, yet whispers insidious doubts in the shadows of our minds? I remember the day I proposed, the air thick with the scent of possibility that clung to the summer breeze. Sunshine spilled through the leaves like golden confetti, illuminating her face, a canvas of flushed excitement and radiant joy. As I knelt on one knee before her, heart racing like a caged bird trapped between the bars of certainty and fear, I felt as if I were suspended between two worlds, the dream of a shared future and the haunting specter of what could go wrong. With the ring glinting in the noonlight, I offered her my world, my devotion, a promise wrapped in a delicate band of silver. Her eyes sparkled wide and enchanting as she whispered yes, a simple word yet monumental in its weight. In that moment, we were two protagonists starring in our own timeless romance, a narrative destined to be filled with laughter, adventure, and love, or so I hoped. But even in that blissful moment, as she slipped the ring onto her finger, an unsettling thought unfurled in the corridors of my mind. What if I wasn't good enough? Would the shadows of our insecurities cast a pall over the effulgence of our early days? I had seen it before, the way relationships can unravel like fragile threads, snagging and tangling on the intricacies of unmet expectations and unexpressed fears. I felt it then, a timid flutter in my stomach, perhaps the first tremors of what would later transform into the earthquake of doubt that shook the foundation of my trust. As the days passed, visions danced before me, a string of wedding plans, the laughter of friends, the innocent joys of wedding cake tastings and floral arrangements. Yet alongside these dreams crept the voice of caution, whispering its erratic refrain. What if she changes? What if she wakes up one day and realizes she can do better? Beneath the surface, the tug-of-war between my hopeful aspirations and my gnawing insecurities raged silently. I experienced fleeting moments of elation overshadowed by dark tendrils of anxiety, constantly searching for reassurance that the love she promised to me was as unwavering as I envisioned. Her laughter often rang out like a melody on a summer evening, fleeting yet resonant, filling my heart with an exquisite sweetness. Yet in the quiet moments beneath the blanket of tranquility, I would often catch her gazing into the distance, lost in thoughts that seemed to drift away on a melancholic breeze. I wondered idly about what she imagined. Was it a life with me, or dreams of exploration, adventure, or perhaps uncharted experiences? Those questions weighed heavily upon me, shackling me with doubt. Evenings stretched out like soft whispers, folded into the comfort of our shared routine. We'd collapse onto the couch with takeout containers and streaming shows, snuggled warmly as the world outside dimmed to a hush. I relished those moments, yet the residual disquiet still gnawed at the edges of my happiness. I began to crave affirmation, a simple gesture, a bold proclamation of her unwavering love. How could I weave these threads of insecurity into the tapestry of our engagement without upsetting the delicate balance of our love? The days unfolded into weeks, and the weight of my introspection began to take its toll, manifesting in moments of unexpected ire, sorrow shimmering just beneath the surface. I would catch her looking at me, concern painting her features like a chiaroscuro portrait, a representation of longing, of disquiet, perhaps puzzlement at my sudden mood shifts. Did she perceive the tempest brewing within? I found myself unable to speak what I felt, afraid that voicing my fears would somehow summon the very outcomes I sought to avoid. We sat together one chilly autumn evening, the leaves blushing against the backdrop of the sky, crackling under the crunch of our footsteps, swallowed by the growing shadows. It was a perfect night for a walk, the air crisp as it hugged us, the world tucking itself into layers of tapestry-like twilight. But as we wandered, her attempts to break the heavy silence fell flat, drowned beneath the weight of my unsaid words. We laughed politely, creating a fragile illusion that everything was fine, yet the air trembled with the questions hanging suspended between us. As we headed towards our favorite coffee shop, the familiar scent of roasted beans wafting through the air, I sensed a shift, a tremor beneath the surface of our comfort. The engagement ring on her finger sparkled relentlessly, each glint serving as a painful reminder of my unresolved fears. Would it become an anchor or a shackle? On the outside, she was the epitome of a glowing fiancée, yet with passing day, I became more acutely aware of the disparity between her contentment and my looming fog of uncertainty. Perhaps that overthinking would lead to demise, the very poison seeping into the roots of our love. I imagined the bitter irony, destined for happiness, yet ensnared by the chains of our own apprehensions, the engagement beginning to feel more like a prison than a promise. But as I observed her laughter and the way her voice danced through the air like a warm breeze, I sighed inwardly, longing to grasp the simplicity of our love amidst the turmoil. Still, it loomed there, the weight of my emotions layered under the gilded surface of the ring she now wore. With each tingle of anticipation for the wedding day grew a clawing anxiety that I could not unearth. Questions circled tirelessly in my mind, spiraling deeper into a doubt-ridden abyss, and I wondered if this fine line between love and fear could hold. As the days flew by, the delicate dance of planning stretched out before us, a bittersweet journey burdened by the weight of expectation. My dreams of a bright future began to flicker uncertainly, shadows swirling like wraiths threatening to consume the love we once celebrated. What would the future unfurl? Beneath the tenuous smiles and the joyous proclamations, I sensed the forthcoming darkness, a harbinger of betrayal lurking just beyond the horizon. It was a normal Tuesday, as if the universe itself conspired to preserve the illusion of ordinariness in the wake of something extraordinary. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, slicing the air with golden rays, igniting my coffee to a simmering warmth. Yet even as I savored the aroma of freshly brewed beans, an unsettling dread seeped into my thoughts, cloaked in an inescapable fog of betrayal. It became a weight on my chest, heavy and suffocating. I tried to ignore it. After all, who could possibly foresee the shattering of a world built on love and friendship so quickly? As the clock's hands circled inevitably, I found myself spiraling down a labyrinthine path of memory. Images flickered through my mind like scattered leaves in autumn. Laughter shared at college bars, secrets whispered under freckled skis, and that day above all others when she said yes, shimmering with happiness, her eyes wide as if she uncovered the universe in my embrace. But I could feel it, an insistent gnawing just beneath the surface. When my fiancée Emily suggested a surprise visit to her parents, my gut twisted with apprehension. After all, Henry, my best man, had failed to hide his restlessness whenever she was mentioned. I shot down those thoughts. Not today, I told myself. It was our day after all. We were supposed to be blissfully engaged, a pair of lovers set upon our journey of marital happiness. But an unexpected phone call shattered that pretense mere hours later. "I need to talk to you. It's about Emily." Hearing Henry's voice left me cold, the warmth of the morning inexplicably replaced with icy uncertainty. We had stood together as comrades in countless battles, armed with histories that felt intertwined deeper than mere friendship. How could he be the bearer of such a tumultuous weight? I arrived at the cafe, a sanctuary of steam and chatter, buzzing with the mundane terrible truths of others, lovers laughing, friends hugging, the innocence of shared pastries reminding me how fragile my own world had become. My fingers drummed against the table, each soft tap a feeble attempt to quell the chaos brewing in my chest. "Henry," I called, my voice threaded with an anxious edge. And there he was, his dark hair tousled in that familiar, casual way, yet today he wore an expression heavy with guilt, his eyes avoiding mine, darting left and right as if seeking to escape a dire confrontation. Henny sank into the seat, and the entire atmosphere shifted. It grew dense, ripe with the unsaid, with the gravity of conversations that could unearth buried truths. For a moment, silence reigned, leaving only the chatter of innocent couples to frame the backdrop. "Please just tell me what's going on." My heart raced, a wild stallion untethered, threatening to buck and throw me into a state of anguish. Behind his hesitation, dread seeped into my bones. He inhaled deeply, a breath like it could anchor this moment in time, his shoulders sagging as if the weight of my world rested there. "Emily, she's with someone else." Those words sliced through me like a knife, sharp and shocking, a visceral realization that left me gasping for breath. "What do you mean?" I croaked, my voice trembling, a shaky bridge above a chasm where love once flourished. "Yesterday I saw her." His gaze was remorseful, if by seeing he had also betrayed. I felt the walls close in, stifling the air around me. "With someone you know." Images exploded in my mind like fireworks, igniting a trail of betrayal, Emily's laughter ringing warm and joyous in my ears, replaced by echoes of secrets whispered at midnight. My heart thudded painfully, blood rushing to my cheeks. Who? It was. Words fumbled in the open air, and in that space of awkward silence, dread grew like a flame licking at the edges of my sanity. It was me, all right. I'm not proud of it, it just happened. The world tilted, and for a moment I felt suspended in disbelief, a marionette whose strings had been cut loose. The reality sank in like a lead anchor, a victim to the weight of betrayal. My heart splintered, shards of potential future scattering around me. I'm sorry, he murmured, and for an instant I wanted to rage, to shout at the universe, to bellow the unfairness that had unfolded. But beneath the wrath bubbling within me lay an insidious darkness, a bottomless pit that threatened to swallow me whole. How could you? I managed, my voice barely above a whisper now, quaking with betrayal. The reality of it all felt surreal, as if I had stepped into someone else's nightmare, the air thick with the scent of betrayal. She was never mine to take. It wasn't planned, the alcohol, the late nights, it spiraled. His confession tumbled out, a cascade of regret that seemed to wash over the both of us, mingling with the sweet aroma of coffee gone cold. But I promise you nothing happened after this. She called me, I should have told you sooner. And there it was, the truth wrapped in a tangle of excuses that saturated my heart with despair. My thoughts spiraled, I sought a tether, a means of grounding myself in this tempest of heartache and loyalty betrayed. The churning within me immolated any warm tendril of the love that once enveloped us both. In that cafe, the world spun on, uncaring, unaware, while my life crumbled like dust in the wind. It felt surreal, being so acutely aware of my surroundings and yet so unanchored, a marionette severed from its strings, untethered in an ocean of uncertainty, misfortune, and regret. Through clenched teeth, a decision began to form. Revenge clouded my judgment, visions of retribution flashing before my eyes like snippets of a twisted film, a tale where the hero could reclaim what had been lost. After all these years, years of friendship flushed down the proverbial drain, love now a memory stained with treachery. I glanced at Henry, and in that silent rage I felt the flames ignite beneath my resolve. What he had done was unforgivable, yet I was not willing to let this end without a proper reckoning. The puppet may have cut its strings, but it was not done dancing just yet. Standing at the threshold of the coffee shop, the familiar smell of roasted beans mingled with the anxiety churning in my stomach. Outside, a gentle rain painted the sidewalks, blurring the world into a watercolor dream, yet inside, reality threatened to fracture. I could hardly remember the last time I'd felt like this, caught in a fraying web of betrayal and unresolved questions, as the faces of those I once trusted danced like phantoms in my mind. As I stepped through the door, my heart thudded painfully against my ribcage, each beat a reminder of the impending confrontation. It was the kind of meeting that could either put an end to my anguish or deepen it. My eyes scanned the room, searching for a glimpse of my best man, the man who had risen from the sidelines to steal everything that meant the most to me. And there he was, seated in the far corner, an oddly serene look on his face, as if he were awaiting the arrival of a long-lost friend rather than the judgment of a man he had betrayed. I approached slowly, my pulse quickening with every step. The sound of rain pattering against the window was a symphony to my turmoil, each droplet echoing the weight of my unresolved feelings. I pulled a chair from the table with a screech, the noise piercing the quiet intimacy of the cafe, causing heads to turn, a sense of something unspeakable building in the air. Why? I asked before I even sat down, my voice a mix of anger and bewilderment that surprised even me. Why did you do it? Why her? His expression didn't shift, and I felt the lump in my throat swell as desperation clawed at my insides. This is how it had to be. Had to confront him, had to pierce the veil of his stoic facade. I leaned in, desperate for some kind of answer that would make sense of the chaos. It was unexpected. The words hung heavy between us, laden with the unspoken insinuation that I had somehow brought this upon myself. The coffee shop buzzed around us, strangers laughing, glasses clinking, the world moving on while I felt stuck in a moment that should have passed. Unexpected. You're telling me betrayal was unexpected? I couldn't hold back the incredulity that tinged my voice. You swore to be there for me. We were supposed to be brothers. He blinked slowly, like a man waking from a dream that lost its charm. You don't understand. There were things unsaid between us, feelings I didn't know how to process. It wasn't just about her, it was about everything. The bitterness bubbling in my throat threatened to suffocate me. Everything, what does that even mean? We had plans, a future. You were my best friend. And then my voice cracked under the weight of emotion, the words spilling forth like a dam breaking. It wasn't fair. I had shared my life with him, my laughter, my dreams, and suddenly it was all crumbling under a tide of deceit. A torrent of memories washed over me with a fragile joy now tinted with the garish brush of betrayal. And you took her. You took my heart, my family, my future. I pushed the words out like they were stone, each syllable an affront to the warm memories we once shared. A flicker of regret passed across his face, a momentary crack in the armor he had so carefully constructed around himself. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I couldn't help how I felt, he replied, and his admission hung in the air, heavy with a truth that was both damning and liberating. There, between the unyielding steel of his accusations and my frayed hope lay a tarnished bond, tainted but still perhaps salvageable. Couldn't help how you felt, I echoed incredulously. That's not love, that's selfishness. You could have fought for what we had instead of betraying me at the altar. The realization took root deep within me like a thorn buried in flesh, pulsating and raw. I had come searching for clarity, an answer to soothe the jagged heartbreak, but life doesn't always offer redemption nor grants easy responses. His gaze fell, the weight of my words pulling him into a recursive silence. I could see him wrestling with the turmoil inside, but it no longer mattered to me. I had to reclaim the threads of my life, the love I had once invested in not only my fiancé but also in this man, once my closest friend. I don't know how we came to this, I said at last, my tone losing its edge as sorrow seeped into my conviction. I thought we were on the same journey, but it feels like you were heading in a different direction all along. I guess I just didn't want to see it. I wanted to believe the bond we shared somehow made us immune to this kind of pain. He met my gaze then, a flicker of understanding sparking between us, perhaps the ghost of a shared history hinting at what could have been. I was scared, like I was losing something, he confessed, and for an instant I saw him not as the villain of my story but as a lost boy, too consumed by his own insecurities to recognize the chaos he was creating. Fear doesn't justify this, I replied, though my voice trembled, the barrier between us starting to crack. And it's certainly not a reason to abandon friendship when it gets complicated. You chose her, it's a choice I'll have to live with. Our eyes locked in a moment that felt like eternity. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the world anew, perhaps a reflection of the cleansing I now craved for my own battered heart. I could finally see the path laid out ahead of me, illuminated by the bittersweet glow of acceptance. Our friendship lay broken, and no words could return it to its former glory. But in this painful confrontation, truth unraveled itself like a frayed knot, leaving behind an open space still yearning for closure. Sometimes life doesn't resolve in neat packages, I realized as I broke the gaze, lifting my eyes to the rain-smeared window, a kaleidoscope of blurred images waiting to come back into focus. My world had crumbled into shards of disbelief, each piece a cruel reminder of the friends I thought I could trust. The air in the aftermath of betrayal was thick with tension, a bitter energy pervading through rooms that had once filled with laughter and camaraderie. I had lived in the haze of engagement, every picture-perfect moment marred now by visions of them together. She had slipped away, hand in hand with the very person who had promised to uphold my side on what was meant to be the happiest day of my life. Love, it seemed, had been extinguished to reveal its more unseemly cousin, treachery. I found myself wandering through quiet hallways, the remnants of friendships that once felt unshakable now hauntingly hollow. The phone buzzed insistently in my pocket, a modern siren wailing for attention, desperate to rein me back into a world I no longer recognized. Text messages from our once tight-knit circle began to trickle in, each one more painful than the last. A cacophony of sympathy disguising judgment, pleased to talk, insistent reminders that they wanted to help. Silence was my refuge, yet I could sense their collective gaze piercing through the walls, scrutinizing the ways I grappled with the fallout of their betrayal. "Why are you being so dramatic?" I could almost hear those familiar voices echo in my thoughts. "It's just about moving on." Move on, just 3 words draped in an ignorance too heavy to bear. Nothing could convey the gulf that had opened beneath my feet, my heart clenching with every recollection of laughter shared and secrets swapped. They had lost the right to counsel me, lost the right to weave their advice into the very fabric of my ongoing saga of heartache. Each word felt coated in the bitterness of betrayal, a needling reminder of the mockery that love had transformed into. Every encounter with them flipped a switch, unleashing a diabolical concoction of anger and sadness bubbling beneath the surface. I could see their fault lines. Friends who once reveled in late-night discussions around shared dreams now teetered on the brink of becoming enemies. Had this betrayal awakened dormant insecurities, casting me into a role of the outsider, the unwitting antagonist in my own life's narrative? I sought refuge in solitude, refusing to face their sympathetic gazes. Cocked heads and knowing smiles were daggers I could not endure. In their attempt to grasp for my hand, all I saw were fists clenching around the betrayal wrapped so tightly in their palms. The first time I encountered them together was a day that etched itself into the very core of my being. They sauntered past, oblivious to the tempest they forged in my chest. Her eyes sparkled with a light I hadn't seen in weeks, a light that had previously been reserved for me. I knew that brightness well. I'd been lucky enough to bask in it. But the joy was eclipsed by something darker, satisfaction perhaps, a satisfaction that mocked my feeble attempts to piece my life back together. My breaths quickened as I fought back the wave of emotions threatening to drown me, but amidst the chaos, thoughts crystallized. Why should I allow them the luxury to care little for my devastation? Conversations around the table became a theater of conflict. We just want what's best, one would chime, unintentionally shifting the blame once again. The table would quiver under the weight of their newly found alliances, as though the place I once occupied had been enthusiastically offered to someone else. But is what's best really abandoning a friend? I pushed forward, my voice steady but strained, knowing fully it didn't reflect the storm brewing inside. One particular evening, someone, their usually cheerful demeanor turned somber, offered a shake of the head. "You can't keep holding on to the anger, you'll only hurt yourself." No one had the audacity to add that their loyalty had shifted, but the unspoken words hung between us, wrapping around our shared breath. Forgive and forget had now metamorphosed into accept and tolerate, and I found myself grappling with if that was enough. In the wake of accusations circling like a hawk searching for its prey, my heart thudded with a fierce longing for compassion. Beyond the walls of betrayal lay the ruins of companionship, unrecognizable, marred, and yet somehow I still yearned to salvage what remained. Each interaction was a trial, a painful dance through intertwined loyalties and fractured ties. The histories we built together now felt tainted, pausing between breaths when filled with laughter, each exhalation heavy with the weight of what was lost. Time, the relentless arbiter, passed without so much as a glance back. Days turned into weeks, yet I felt paralyzed in this malaise, suspended in grief while life continued unabated outside. My friends, once steadfast warriors by my side, fought their battles elsewhere, most unaware of the war gripping my heart. Yet with every face I saw in passing, each reminder laced with a semblance of false comfort, the resolve deep within me grew insatiable. Once sturdy pillars of my trust turned to ruins, and through the debris I recognized the beginning of something else, a rebellion blooming tenderly through the cracks of anguish. I could be their enemy in this tale. The final act was yet to be written. In the theater of my newfound clarity, I recognized the thread I could pull to unravel the very tapestry of loyalty they had torn asunder. The friendship had morphed into a battlefield of egos, and I would no longer be cast as a mere supplicant to my own sorrow. Sweet and unsanctioned revenge would be the stage I would frame, reclaiming the narrative they robbed. With resolve strengthening like iron beneath my skin, I welcomed the shadows that had lurked behind every whisper, shaping the course of this emerging saga that would forever change the way I saw the world around me. Friends had become foes, a fierce lesson learned through the crucible of betrayal, and I prepared to dance upon these ashes, for the weight of heartbreak had transformed into the thrill of retribution. They say when you hit rock bottom, you find out what you're truly made of, but sitting in the echoing void of solitude that my life had become, I felt nothing but the weight of despair pressing down like the crushing depths of the ocean. It wasn't just that they had run away together. No, that would be too simple to digest. It was the betrayal that twisted in my gut like a serpent. The once familiar faces of my fiancé and my best man now contorted into masks of merciless laughter, mocking the very trust I had nourished like a wilting plant. In the nauseating aftermath of my shattered affections, I wandered through the ruins of my life, stumbling upon the debris of unfulfilled dreams and tarnished memories, haunted by the ghost of what could have been. The world outside my window bustled with life, vibrant and obnoxious, a stark contrast to the haunting stillness within. I could hear the laughter of children playing in the street, their innocent joy serving as a cruel reminder of my own lost happiness. Each giggle pierced my heart, bringing forth a wave of bitterness that crashed against the shores of my sanity. How could they laugh when I was drowning? Yet I was the one trapped in this suffocating bubble, struggling to breathe while surrounded by the vivid hues of life blaring through my thin walls. I felt like a ghost, an observer in my own existence as my shadow lingered on the edges of familiarity, clutching desperately to the remnants of my former self. As days morphed into weeks, I sought refuge in the dark corners of my mind, ensnaring myself in memories that hurt as much as they comforted. I became a scholar of heartache and aficionado of sorrow, analyzing every fleeting moment we had shared. "Remember that time?" I'd mutter to myself, grasping for the echoes of laughter that seemed to diminish more with each passing recollection. When we had strolled through the park, her hand warm in mine, the sunlight filtering through the leaves above us like a gentle cascade of blessings. How could I have missed the signs? The way his eyes lingered a second too long, as if painting a portrait of desire with each stolen glance. My mind replayed the scenes like a worn-out film reel, crackling with the anthropological study of my own foolish heart. I had always been the kind of guy who avoided the hard truths, shielding myself with a wall of optimism and belief that love could conquer all. Naive maybe, but my conviction was as sturdy as freshly laid bricks on a summer's day. What I overlooked was destiny lurking in the shadows, fanged and poised to strike. It was a bitter medicine that I had to swallow, the audacity of hope clashing violently with the crude reality of my situation. My friends, once pillars of support, transformed into whispered reminders of my failure, their awkward glances slicing through my skin like shards of ice, cold, cutting, and embedded deep into the flesh of my pride. I could almost see their disappointment radiating off them in waves, as if I were an abysmal creature unworthy of their companionship. They thought I was strong, a reliable friend who had it all together, but who could ever guess the tempestuous storm that raged within? My introspection morphed into a spiral of madness, each negative thought twisting violently around the core of my existence, no longer holding the weight of mere disappointment, but evolving into a full-blown chaos of self-loathing. Every sneer felt like a physical blow, the world painting me as the villain of my own story, while the real antagonists wandered free, hand in hand, unaware of the devastation they had left behind. Yet tucked within the corners of my anguish, a flicker of resolve began to spark. The spark, initially just a dying ember beneath layers of sorrow, manifested itself into a burning flame that refused to be snuffed out. If they thought I was meant to languish in the shadows, they had underestimated my spirit. With the agony of betrayal morphing into a steely determination, a potent elixir of vengeance began to brew within. I wasn't just going to wallow in my misfortunes. I would redefine the narrative of my existence. As they danced through the sunlit realms of love and laughter, I would craft a plan that would unveil the cracks of their facade, exposing the truth of their betrayal for all to see. Abandoning my thoughts of self-pity, I began to map out a strategy weaving connections between the scattered threads of my emotions and intentions. They had taken everything from me: my love, my dreams, and my sense of belonging. But now, as the specter of despair faded into mere background noise, my mind awakened with the vision of retribution. The intoxicating taste of revenge felt sweet, like honey on the tongue, tempting me onward into the dark abyss of my own making. The descent into the murky depths would not consume me. It would sculpt me, chisel away the remnants of vulnerability, and equip me with the armor needed to emerge stronger, wiser, and perhaps more formidable than I had ever been. In the dead of night, shrouded by the cloak of solitude, the seed of redemption took root, burrowing into the fertile soil of my resolve. I would embrace the darkness, nurturing it like an old friend while plotting a course towards vindication, one that would rekindle the remnants of my shattered identity and set the stage for a dramatic unveiling of the truth. With eyes narrowed and heart racing, I began the journey into the unknown, steeling myself for the battles ahead, ready to reclaim what was lost. Because in every tempest, there lies the potential for rebirth, and in my heart of hearts I knew this bitter chapter of betrayal would ultimately serve its purpose as the catalyst for my sweetest vengeance. Revenge, I learned, is a dish best served with a drizzle of ambition and just the right hint of bitterness. In the weeks that followed my whirlwind of betrayal, each fleeting moment allowed me to grapple with the emotional storm that wrestled inside me. The memories of laughter, shared plans, and promises exchanged with Olivia reverberated within a hollow chamber of my heart, but it was the insidious laughter of Marcus, my supposed best man, that gnawed at my resolve. Pain mingled with fury. I was no longer just heartbroken, I was ignited by the fire of retribution. As I paced in my dimly lit apartment, I devised a plan that would deliver both poetic justice and a beautifully orchestrated culmination of humiliation for both Olivia and Marcus. It began with the realization that beneath my despair lay an opportunistic artist yearning to craft a masterpiece of vengeance, one stroke at a time. The idea crystallized in my mind, taking shape as though summoned from the depths of a malicious dream. First, I needed to gather information on the current state of relations between my former fiancée and her new love. Just days earlier, I had witnessed their embracing shadows against the backdrop of a setting sun at the park where we used to stroll, a scene that made me dizzy with loathing. To my surprise, the perfect avenue for insight came through the very threads of friendship that had tethered us all together. What had once been a web of camaraderie now morphed into a conduit for knowledge, and I was about to play my cards with those still loyal to my cause, my friends. There was Sam, a vivid personality who could flit through life with a grace I envied. Last I heard, she had a penchant for gossip and addiction to the latest drama that unfolded around her. I reached out casually, masking my intentions beneath the guise of friendly banter. We met at our favorite bar, a small establishment with peeling paint and soft, dim lights where the jukebox injected nostalgia and warmth into the air. I recounted the tale of lost love over frosted mugs of beer, watching as her eyes widened with sympathy, feigned or otherwise. "Yeah, if you hadn't caught Olivia red-handed, I'm sure she'd have thought she could wriggle out of it," she offered, her voice tinged with faux indignation. "But you know how Marcus is. He'll charm his way into anything. His situation will combust, you wait and see." A subtle validation, I noted, kindling, I thought, foster my idea with the inertia of their inevitable dysfunction. The first domino set in motion, I knew the next step required cunning finesse, the creation of a facade that would bring both Olivia and Marcus to my arena, a place above all others that prompted reflection and discomfort. What better stage for my performance than the wedding venue they had chosen, now a bastion of ridicule rather than splendor? I reached out to the wedding planner, a friend of mine who was eager to dive into a project brimming with scandal. Creativity blossomed with our nightly brainstorming sessions, sourcing themes steeped in irony, perhaps a charity gala to highlight the plight of those scorned by love, laced with an assortment of clever yet cutting touches. With each detail we imbued with sardonic elegance, I envisioned the havoc it would wreak. An invitation list that danced through the social circles Olivia once paraded through, mingling with gossip and innuendo as if it were champagne. I recognized they'd never guess I'd orchestrated this orchestrated betrayal, feigning positivity while I was simply sharpening my blade. The invitations flew out, adorned not with their names but rather with haunting quotes that enshrined loss in attire woven by the very fabric of disillusion. To boldly love is to fail magnificently. I could almost hear the chorus of obtrusive laughter echoing through the solemnity of their unfaithful bond. Like molten glass, the concept twisted and shaped itself, a beautiful prison of my making. I painted vivid scenes in their minds, I ready-scribed the future for them, a luminous delusion soon to meet its undoing. As the gala drew closer, anticipation fused with anxiety within the core of my being. I found myself caught at a crossroad of vengeance and regret. It became crucial to remind myself of the deeper layers of my resentment swirling amidst remorse. I was not the villain in this narrative. No, I was merely the conductor, orchestrating a well-deserved symphony of reparations, a dance of truths exposed and egos skewered. The night of the gala arrived cloaked in an overwhelming buzz of excitement, as I donned a tailored suit that promised sophistication while concealing the tempest that swirled inside. The venue, once adorned with the trappings of a romantic dream, was draped with substantial irony. Glistening chandeliers casting a daunting sheen over tables cluttered with bitter confections meant to invoke their past paradigms. I felt the excitement of a playwright seeing their work unfold on stage, the lines spewed forth with delicious drama. As guests trickled in with bewildered expressions, the sound of laughter echoed, mingling with the dim bass of through-the-night acquaintances. I detected the brief flicker of recognition as Olivia and Marcus crossed the threshold, fingers entwined, their shared oblivion cloaked with naive confidence. My heart surged not with fear but with the promise of justice. I mustered a smile, both a mask of civility and a harbinger of the bloodletting soon to unfold. "Welcome," I spoke into the microphone, the first whispers of intrigue reverberating through the air. "Tonight we gather not just to honor love but to reflect upon the fragility of trust and the depths of deceit." Gasps erupted and a charged energy pulsed through the room. I feasted upon their confusion, a match ignited in a room full of combustible tensions, reveling in the knowledge that the evening's true purpose was far more than a celebration. It was my symphony, a serenade of retribution that would echo long after the last glass shattered. The moment hung before me like a ripe fruit. All that remained was to relish the sweetness of my revenge, the night's score yet to be played out before captivated audience-less stars. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an amber glow over the world as I sat at the edge of the park, the air thick with the bittersweet scent of chance encounters and faded promises. It was there, a small clearing of grass wedged between those towering ancient oaks, where I hatched my plan, the very ground whispering secrets of betrayal and heartache that swirled in the ether. My heart raced, not from fear but from a burgeoning resolve, one born from the ashes of loss. This was not merely a stage for revenge, it was a theater of my rebirth. They would arrive later, a motley collection of misfits drawn by a strange gravity I now sought to exploit. The bittersweet irony did not escape me. I had been the architect of celebration, the one who crafted visions of love and eternal bliss, an envious specter of happiness that shadowed my own heart. Yet this day would be different. My hands would pen a new narrative, a thrilling tale marked not by the innocence of love but the delicious thrill of revenge. The park had been our playground, a site of endless laughter and burgeoning dreams, now transformed into an arena where self-doubt would meet its match. I envisioned the scene with an unsettling clarity. An open invitation lingering on social media, buried beneath layers of playful banter, would summon the familiar faces of my once-beloved friends. All of them unaware that the heartache lying just beneath my calm exterior simmered into a fierce wave threatening to wash over and engulf them, sweeping them into an abyss of revelation. I leaned back against the rough bark of the tree, allowing the memories to flood my mind, each moment a brushstroke in the grand mural of my past life, a past now twisted into an elaborate game. I imagined them laughing, their voices ringing out like chimes in a gentle breeze. I could almost see Sam's bright eyes sparkling with mischief, throwing out unassuming quips that would make everyone chuckle. Lee, my fiancée, would stand by his side, her laughter, a melody I once adored, now a haunting reminder of betrayal. How naive I had been, believing in the permanence of affection, blissfully unaware that feigned fidelity could mask a heart that yearned for a different pulse. In that moment the pain transformed into a sharp resolve, a sword forged in the fires of humiliation. The setting was crucial. It had to feel organic yet strung together with an invisible thread guiding them toward realization. I began laying the groundwork, scattering whispers of the possible, news that would ripple through the grapevine faster than I could anticipate. A gathering at the usual spot, a bonfire casting shadows of nostalgia against the backdrop of twilight. It was the perfect ruse, a safe haven for the oblivious, but also a simmering cauldron of truths waiting to boil over. Days turned into restless nights as I mapped out every detail of the plan. I reached out to friends selectively, testing the waters to see who might flutter to the surface, whose curiosity would drive them to answer the call of impending chaos. After all, who could resist the allure of a party heralded by free spirits, brazen laughter, and the intoxicating aroma of adventure? I could almost hear their voices echoing in the dark streets leading to the park, their anticipation crackling like energy in the air. They would come, those who chose to betray the truth of our shared past. And there would be a twist, a strand woven into the fabric of our gathering that would unfurl in layers, each one revealing the truth behind the facade of merriment. I prepared an assortment of printed photos, a discarded reel of memories, moments we all believed unbreakable. Old birthday celebrations, drunken nights under starry skies, the triumphs that had stitched us together. These moments would become the bombshells that tremored beneath our planned bliss, exposing the undercurrents of deception rippling through the very fabric of our friendships. I spent hours crafting a narrative, a delicate tapestry of events leading up to unveiling, where secrecy would lay siege to familiarity. Each word whispered would become a building block, raising a structure that would tumble down with just a flick of truth. What then? I envisioned their faces, the mask of joy wilting with every truth laid bare, eyes widening, pupils dilating as reality usurped their expectations. It would be my moment, a rite of passage not just into vengeance but into a deeper understanding of my own heart. I was no longer the background character in my life's story. I was its author, and I would write a poignant tale of betrayal with characters we had all once loved. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in twilight hues, the time drew near. Excitement thrummed in my veins, not just for the thrill of revenge but for the transformation that lay ahead. Would I emerge from this an echo of who I used to be or a figure forged anew in uncertainty? This was the sweet taste that lingered on the tongue, not just revenge served cold but the bitter alchemy of remorse and renewal. The stage was nearly set, the pieces slowly moving into place. I closed my eyes, letting the wind carry away my fears, transforming them into something tangible, a feeling that coursed through me, a potent elixir. I would stand in the center of this cyclone, the eye of the storm where fear and rage fused together, creating a force powerful enough to change everything. They would not just witness my revenge, they would witness my metamorphosis from hurt boy to an architect of my destiny, one where laughter was not the only sound echoing through that fateful evening, but the crackling of truth igniting judgment mingled with the bitter sweetness of liberation. Time stood. In that crowded room, the air thick with unspoken words as I held my breath, clutching a drink that had long since warmed in my hand. The flickering lights cast elongated shadows that danced ominously along the walls, mirroring the chaos that churned just beneath the surface of my composure. How could this be happening, I thought, glancing around at faces flickering under the weight of their choices. She had always said I was the stable one, the rock in the storm, but now my very foundation had been shaken loose, and the world I thought I knew was nothing more than a house of cards, waiting for the inevitable gust to blow it all away. A murmur broke through the din, like a ripple across a still pond, bringing my thoughts crashing back to the moment. My best man, no less, stood at the center of a gathering crowd, his laugh ringing out, light, carefree, and cruelly juxtaposed against the turmoil in my heart. Daniel had always been the charming one, the magnetic force that drew people in, but it wasn't just his charisma that had captured the attention of my fiancée, Laura. It was the very deception that had woven itself through our friendship, through the fabric of our lives as tightly as the threads of a well-worn tapestry. And then I spotted her. Laura floated into view, an apparition in her radiant dress that sparkled as she moved, completely oblivious to the wreckage that surrounded her. Her laughter, once my beacon of joy, now struck me like a dagger twisted in my gut. The disbelief hung heavy on my shoulders, a cloak woven tightly with betrayal and confusion. As she intertwined herself in Daniel's orbit, each shared smile a puncture wound, I felt a cocktail of emotions surge through me, anger, sadness, and an aching sense of loneliness that was almost unbearable. They hadn't seen me. The fabric of their reality had buried me in the shadows, where I now lingered, wrestling with the thoughts that crashed against one another within my mind. Was this how it was always going to be? A life charmed by deceit? The walls began to close in as I sensed the laughter around me turning hollow, and those who once stood united with me now seemed silent bystanders in my tragedy. Where were the allies I had counted on, the friends who were supposed to stand beside me through thick and thin? A swell of voices drew my attention, and I turned to overhear snippets of conversations that flitted around like moths drawn to a flame. The laughter from within their circles was yet another betrayal, each chuckle stinging fresh wounds. Someone whispered about boundaries crossed, who crossed them first, and how the world had lost its moral compass. Words that churned with malice and pity. I tuned them out, feeling more isolated with every passing second. I was a pariah in my own narrative. Yet among the chaos, a clarity began to emerge. This wasn't just about loss, it was about illumination, the bright and blinding moment when all finally fell into place. I had to unearth the truth beneath the surface, peel back the layers of deception that had been building for far too long. My heart beat steadily as I rose from the corner of the room, fire igniting within me. It was no longer a matter of drowning in despair. It was time to harness that anguish into something powerful. Time for the secrets to unfurl at last. As I began to weave through the gathering crowd, I saw shadows shift with anticipation. The evening's primary light began to dim as a new possibility loomed on the horizon, a future that could be redefined if I played my cards right. I found myself drawn towards the heart of the celebration, the place where laughter seemed to erupt more fervently, perhaps the very place where truths might combust into revealing flames. My heart raced more than my feet could carry me as the urgency of my quest propelled me toward the stage where all the secrets lay, waiting to be unveiled. With every step I thought of all the moments Laura and I had shared, of laughter over candlelit dinners and plans spun long into starry nights. How had it come to this? The realization hung on me like an unshed tear, radiant in its agony. Perhaps a confrontation was the catalyst they never anticipated. Maybe unveiling the truth would not incite further malice but would shatter the masquerade that had enveloped them both. I felt the weight of the decision ripple through my veins, the dramatic shift from victim to avenger, from spectator to orchestrator of my own narrative. The crowd began to part as I approached, aware of my very encroaching upon a landscape they thought they could control. Laura caught my gaze, her eyes widened with surprise and something else, fear, regret. The mix of emotions roiled within her, signaling that the bright facade had begun to crack. Without waiting for the cosmic alignment to announce my entrance, I took the stage and let the trembling silence stretch taut beyond reason. "Is this what you wanted?" My voice rang out, steady yet laced with emotion, resonating starkly among the whispers. "To play with hearts. To tread so lightly over everything we built together. Because let's be honest here. It doesn't matter how charming he is or how bright your dress might shine. This is a theater of farce and deceit. Secrets come to light tonight, and I will no longer be a background player in your little act." The gasps that followed echoed like thunderclaps, each one layering the tension burgeoning within the room. Their moments had overflowed into my trajectory, and now their world was bending, twisting as secrets unfurled. I was ready to show them that truth carried its weight, and that no matter how precariously they danced atop their lies, the music had waned and the final curtain was set to drop. In that piercing silence, I could feel every heartbeat, every dawning realization, every flicker of betrayal reflected back from the crowd that once felt like home. And at that moment, amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope ignited within me. The unveiling had begun. The clock had become a merciless judge, each tick echoing the silence that enveloped the room. The dim light filtered through the sheer curtains, dust particles swirling in the air as if trying to escape the weight of the unsaid. I could feel it sitting heavy in my chest, the realization of betrayal tightening its grip until breath was a labor. My fiancé and my best man, they were supposed to be pillars in my life, steadfast in their support, unwavering in their loyalty. Yet here they were, the architects of my deepest anguish, engulfing my world in shambles like a reckless storm unearthing a fragile facade. My thoughts drifted back, recollections of laughter shared, support promised, secrets whispered under the cover of night. What had I missed in those moments? Was love and friendship merely a game to them, pieces to be sacrificed easily for the thrill of being the last one standing? Each memory pricked at the edges of my resolve, drawing blood as I replayed snapshots of a time when our fates intertwined seamlessly, like strands of a well-woven tapestry. I had fashioned a beautiful life, a dream adorned with picturesque moments, yet a single thread had pulled loose, unraveling everything I had once held dear. There came a soft knock at the door, the sound jarring amidst the introspection, punctuating the thick atmosphere with a pulse of reality. Hesitation collided with my need for control. I recalled the cacophony of voices at the engagement party, the way she had laughed in his presence, a sound so sweet now tainted like an overripe fruit. I rose from where I sat, each step a battle of purpose and uncertainty, as I pulled the door open to find an unexpected ally, my sister, with a fierce determination etched into her features. "Are you really going to let them get away with this?" she challenged, her voice cutting through my fog of despair. "You still have people who care about you. Don't let their cowardice define your future." Her words ignited a spark within me, an ember of resolve that had flickered feebly but now began to blaze. Who would stand beside me in this storm? The question hung heavy between us, the specter of loss visible in her eyes, a subtle encouragement urging me to wrestle with the turmoil beneath my facade. I knew this was not just about vengeance. It was about reclaiming the narrative of my life, rewriting the ending that had been so grotesquely altered. I inhaled deeply, the familiar scent of jasmine, her favorite perfume, wrapping around me as memories of shared childhood sparked to life. What should I do? I asked, my voice a whisper caught in the whirlwind of thoughts. How do I fight betrayal when the enemy wears the faces of those I loved? Fight with your heart, she said, her gaze unwavering, but sharp in your mind. They think they can waltz through life untouched, but they don't know the power of your truth. You are not alone in this, you have allies even if they don't wear the guise of friendship. In that moment a vision began to take shape, a plan as intricate as the web of relationships I had once believed to be reliable. I summoned the strength lying dormant within me and approached, not merely in spite but in a deep desire to regain my agency. What if the real target isn't them but the narrative they've spun? I mused aloud, the wheels of thought turning in the simmering cauldron of my mind. What if I expose them, lay bare their deception in a way that leaves no room for doubt? Her eyes glimmered with a fierceness I hadn't seen before. You're onto something. They've woven a story that paints you as the villain of their tale, but you are the hero of your own. You create the narrative. Invite them into your world, but do it on your terms. The gravity of her words filled the silence, marking a distinct shift within me. I envisioned the days leading to the big reveal, a series of carefully orchestrated events that would gather momentum like a tidal wave, sweeping everyone up in its swell. I need to gather the friends still loyal to me, those who saw the truth. We create a space, a gathering that brings us together one last time for them to face the consequences of their actions. A knowing smile broke her somber demeanor, a reflection of support fused with defiance. Count me in. We'll turn their betrayal into a spectacle and they will learn that their infamy carries a price. And just like that, a plan was born amidst the ashes of betrayal. The stage was set. With purpose igniting the filaments of my despair, I understood that the reckoning was not merely about revenge. It was a reclamation of self, an assertion that I would not be muted by the shadows of their treachery. Riding the tide of resolve, I began to reach out to friends, the good ones, the ones who understood the fabric of my character and the loyalty I embodied. Each conversation filled me with warmth, building layers of support as voices rallied behind the truth, echoing solidarity. As the day of reckoning approached, the air vibrated with tension, a palpable electricity that thrummed between anticipation and dread. My heart raced, caught between the exhilaration of reclaiming my story and the haunting echoes of betrayal that lingered. Each step I took toward confrontation was fraught with complexity, layers of past friendships dancing like ghosts, twisting in a tumult of emotions. But in the heart of this labyrinthine journey, one truth crystallized above all else. I had not chosen this path out of malice. I chose it to unveil hidden truths and to rebuild not just myself, but the very essence of trust that had shattered around me. As the time approached for my voice to rise above the tempest, I stood resolute, knowing that somewhere within the whirlpool of hurt and anger lay the promise of rebirth, and with it the ultimate renewal of hope. The rain fell softly, but it felt as relentless as the emotions swirling within me. Every drop that fractured against the ground seemed to echo the fracture in my heart, a rhythm of loss that had accompanied me through the last few months. I stood at the edge of a new chapter, one written without the names of those I once cherished. Trust, friendship, and love had all become mere whispers of what used to be, replaced by the haunting sound of betrayal. Yet as I gazed at the reflections in the puddles, I could almost see the stirrings of a resolution, a flicker of hope that dared to rise amidst the wreckage. Days had passed since the confrontation, since I had watched the betrayal unfold before my very eyes. A twisted sense of reality had gripped me, forcing me to confront not just those who had wronged me but the deeper truths within myself. Could I truly forgive? Were those who had wronged me ever deserving of redemption, or was it I who needed to be liberated? A hallowed silence surrounded me, as the world outside continued to move, unyielding and indifferent to the crucible of my suffering. But within me, embers of a quiet determination were beginning to burn brighter. It all started to crystallize as I walked alone, each footfall grounding me in the present while shaking loose the shadows of my past. Friends had turned into foes, a tapestry of loyalty now dismantled unceremoniously. With every step, I felt the heavy weight of their treachery, yet I found something oddly liberating about the pangs of betrayal. It granted me clarity. I was no longer bound to a vision of love that had become tainted. I was free to chart my own course, to cultivate a new life unshackled by the ghosts of my former dreams. The resolve to embrace this new beginning arose with an unexpected warmth. I recalled the laughter we had shared, the dreams we had built, and how quickly they had evaporated like morning mist. Yet amid that heartache, something else emerged, an awareness of my own strength and resilience. I had existed within someone else's narrative for so long, crafting my identity to fit around the needs and desires of others. Now it was time to rewrite my own story. Through my clouded thoughts, the faces of my true friends flickered into view, those who had stood by me and offered solace in the storm. They became pillars of support, whispering words of encouragement that roused me from my stupor. It was in their company that I discovered the concept of genuine connection and loyalty, their unwavering presence contrasting sharply with the betrayal I had experienced. With them at my side, I grasped the reality that life, though painfully sour at times, could also be astoundingly sweet. It expanded my view of what it meant to truly belong, to open oneself to the possibility of new relationships that celebrated the essence of intimacy, vulnerability, and understanding. Days morphed into weeks, and in this new routine I cultivated the resolve to face my past, not with hatred but with acceptance. I started writing again, pouring the remnants of my thoughts and feelings onto paper. A cathartic release of pent-up grief morphed into effulgence. The characters I conjured in those fragments became friends, guiding me through a labyrinth of emotions, helping me to process what had transpired. From that darkness I explored themes of betrayal and rediscovery. Through the strokes of my pen, I forged connections not only with those who had hurt me but with those who had taught me the real meaning of loyalty. Step by step I ventured out of my former cave of solitude, trading shadows for the glow of laughter and shared stories. I smiled more often these days, finding joy in the small things, a shared coffee, a supportive text, the warmth of a hug. The irony was not lost on me. Life was moving forward, yet here I was, feeling alive for the first time since the shattering moment that had sent me spiraling. I discovered more about myself in this period of loneliness than I had through the months of unreciprocated devotion. I dreamed again, not of what had been taken, but of what was yet to come. And then serendipity graced me with its presence. In a crowded cafe, I stumbled upon a chance conversation that blurred boundaries and extended my horizons. New faces, fresh stories, they represented a limitless palette of the human experience. Some were artists, dreamers chasing within the realm of imagination. Others were adventurers with laughter sparkling like sunlight through clouds. I felt as though the universe was expanding, beckoning me to embrace this new beginning. I couldn't help but feel that perhaps this was a point in time crafted just for me, a moment when the wheel of fortune began to turn. It was not just a polished veneer that awaited me on the horizon. It was a reconciliation with all the parts of myself that had been neglected, the boldness of my art, the depth of my creativity, and the sheer audacity of my dreams. I learned that forgiveness would not be a fleeting moment, but rather a continuous journey. As I let go of the anchors of betrayal, I awakened to a reservoir of strength and empathy that I never knew I could possess. With every heartbeat, I embraced the truth. Life is a tapestry woven with threads of joy, sorrow, betrayal, and redemption. I had once envisioned love as the cornerstone of my existence, but it was clear now that the love I needed most was the love I could cultivate within myself. I reveled in the idea that this was my new beginning, an opportunity to discover the nuances of self-love, resilience, and authentic connection. As I stood there on that rainy day, staring out at the endless horizon, I felt a wave of reassurance wash over me. The world ahead was unexplored, an invitation to forge my own path, breathe my own truth, and cherish those who aligned with my soul. The bittersweet lessons learned from heartbreak had paved the way for the blossoming of a future glimmering with promise. This was not merely an end. This was a daring embrace of a new beginning, glorious in its imperfections and vibrantly alive with possibility.